Hi. So we're going to be looking at the topic of choice and how it merges into a library paper. So again, this is your instructor, Mr. Barber. We'll kind of go through and we'll kind of clarify anything that kind of comes up as we're going along. One of the biggest things you're always looking at is how can my topic of choice paper merge into an actual library paper? And I'll kind of go into that as time progresses. So the very first part, you're looking at the research topic or a problem, or initially the issue. Again, you're looking at a topic. The topic is the main organizing principle. In other words, you're looking at what is going to be your focus, your focal point. You're looking at primarily a topic that represents the core subject matter of scholarly communication. So again, a lot of times when you're writing, you want to have a purpose. You're not simply just writing to write. You want to make sure that you're writing to either inform somebody or, say, for example, when we initially have a level of communication, when we talk to one another, usually when we're talking, hopefully, when we're talking, we want to make sure that there's a point at the end of what we're talking. And the same thing applies when we're writing. Unless you're into poetry, poetry also has a given topic. When you're looking at creative writing, you're looking at a various topic, you're trying to create a mood. When you're looking at scholarly writing now, you're trying to inform, whether you're informing, whether you're educating, whether you're creating a stance. Initially, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, this is my given point, and from this given point, I would like to clarify my overall points to the point where initially I'm able to either win you over with my argument or dissuade you from another outlook. So how to begin? Do not expect choosing a topic for a research project to be quick and easy. I have a lot of students who kind of wait last minute to do this task. They think, I can wing it. I've done it when I was in high school. I've done it when I was younger. I've done it for other courses, and I did okay. One of the biggest things is you want to kind of get a good head start. The reason why is as time progresses, you want to make sure that you're creating valid points. Again, you should be thinking about you should begin thinking about it right now, and kind of looking at those things, because again, you already have the course schedule. So again, you're starting to look at what things will kind of fit in. So the focus of your writing, the focus of the library research paper is to apply psychological research to an issue in your life or in your community that you feel is being overlooked or neglected. This is where I think I lose a lot of students, because a lot of students think that, okay, I'm going to be doing original research. No, and that's the reason why I clarify as the fact that it's going to be a library research paper. And that's one of the biggest things is you're pulling prior research and using those various points to either educate about an issue that's happening in your community or even an issue that you're seeing in your everyday life, whether on campus, whether even on online campus. So that's what you're kind of really looking at. You're looking at things that you can educate about and offer a given viewpoint. So here are some topics. These are very generic, general topics. There's a listing here that you can kind of choose from. If you need more ideas, there's a little link right there. You can click on that. So within that, you're going to kind of have a better understanding. So when you click on the link, you'll kind of have a more solid application. So choosing a research topic, there are 3 different scenarios that you can apply. Letter I, you can provide you with a general topic area from which you study a particular aspect, and that's where I kind of clarify that. And that's where either you have your textbook or you have the website that was offered prior that can kind of give you some insight and kind of give you a direction. Number 2, provide you with a list of possible topics to choose from. Again, that was already proffered. Or number 3, leave it up to you to choose a topic, and you only have to obtain the permission to write about it before beginning your investigation. That's one of the things is, if you're in the dark, if you feel like, hey, you know what, I don't know if this is psychology, I don't know if this is sociology, I don't know if this is a mixture of both, or if this is a mixture of this, that, and the other, let me know. I'm more than willing to kind of gear you in that direction. I want to be able to make sure that you're presenting on a topic, because I've had students before that kind of went on their own little tangent, or their own little direction, and they lost points for that. They lost points because, again, they were going in a very different direction. And this is where I kind of clarify. When you're applying a lot of your research articles, make sure they're research articles, not newspaper articles or popular online magazines or even popular websites. I want you to use legitimate scholarly resources. Again, that's one of the big things. I'm a big stickler on that. So choosing a research topic, and I'll kind of go through that step too. Again, there's various ways you can go about it, but one of the biggest things you're always looking at is finding related literature. Again, this literature, you're not looking in the newspaper, you're looking for scholarly sources, and that's where a lot of students kind of hit that rut. And one of the ruts is just the fact that they're trying to find research only specifically to the Navajo Nation. One of the biggest hiccup that you're going to find is there is very little research on the Navajo Nation. The reason why is, as a sovereign people, the ability to be studied on, or the ability to study the Navajos, is kind of fraught with a lot of negativity. You have different individuals who feel like, hey, I don't want to be studied, I don't want to be analyzed, therefore I won't take part in this research. And so that's where it kind of hits that rut. And so that's where a lot of students kind of say, okay, well, I can't find any literature, therefore I can't do any research at all. And they'll throw up their hands and kind of just simply, But one of the biggest things that I kind of come across is the fact that look at your community, or look at things that you kind of see, and then tie it in to research that's done on maybe other nationalities or other ethnicities. Say, for example, natives that live in Alaska, or natives that live in various regions across the Navajo, or across the United States. You can kind of see those different similarities, and so you bring those similarities to the Navajo Nation, and you kind of tie it in with what you see on the Navajo Nation. That's where you kind of tie everything together to share your insight. And that's one of the things that's really what you're trying to pull together. You're trying to have that original thought, and that's where you're trying to have that original emphasis. So again, that's one approach. So choosing a research topic, here's the cautionary tale. It is okay to review related literature. It helps refine your approach in analyzing a topic. Then it also allows you to discover that maybe the topic that you were initially researching is not that interesting. Again, you can choose another topic. But again, I really caution you that if you wait too long, I've had students do that, where they waited too long and suddenly the due date is kind of, coming closer, and they kind of just rush it and submit it, and they get their points and they're like, I thought it would have been better. Again, that's one of the things I keep telling students is time management. I cannot stress that enough. Kind of give yourself a little bit of a cushion when you're writing a lot of these things out. So again, do not wait too long to make a switch, and be sure to consult with your professor if you are in doubt. Again, I am available. That's my job. My job is to help you. If you feel like, hey, you know what, I don't feel like I'm going in the right direction, let me know. I'm usually a text away, so let me know so we can arrange a meeting, or email me. I'm usually able to check my emails regularly. But again, if you don't let me know and suddenly you're an hour before the deadline, and suddenly you send me a text, or suddenly you send me an email saying, I have not started on it. All I'm going to say is you have an hour till you submit it. I've had students kind of say, well, that's not fair. I said, no, it's plenty fair, because again, I give you forewarning consistently through the syllabus. So again, that's one of the things, is holding you accountable, but also making sure that if you're in doubt, you got to let me know. Generating research, the where, when, and how. Usually students ask, How do I choose a topic? If you lack ideas or wish to gain focus, perform some or all of the following activities and strategies. So, number one, activity one, review your course readings. A lot of times, a lot of the ideas come from what you've already read or kind of what you've already gleaned over. Do not just review what you have already read, but you can also jump ahead. So some of the stuff you haven't even that we haven't really covered, that's fine. But one of the biggest things is if you jump ahead, great. You can kind of get a better understanding. You can kind of gain better insight. In addition to that, you can kind of find a topic that you feel like, hey, this is pretty interesting. Number two, libraries. Search a library catalog for a good recent introductory books, and if appropriate, more specialized works related to the discipline area of your course. And this is where I've always hit, this is where students always hit that rut. They always say, well, the library's closed. Yes, I do know that. One of the biggest things that I urge you to do is to start using the online library. So again, you'll find that through Deny College. I believe there's a library link. So again, it is there for you. Use it. And that's all I can really urge you to do is use those resources. If you don't use them, it's not really going to benefit anybody. Because it's one of those things where they're made available for you. And it's one of those things where I've had students try to have me choose the idea for them. I won't do that. One, I'll leave it up to you because, again, I want to see if you'll initially think outside the box. Two, what things you'll contribute. So, moving forward. Number three, browse through some current journals in your subject discipline. Again, you should be able to, through the first video, know how to find your journal, the journals, your current journals, your journal, scholarly journals. You should be able to find a lot of that. Again, that's one of the things you're learning to do. You're learning to apply a lot of that. You're learning to search for a lot of these things. And I do try to supply you with enough of the information, core information, but at times you're also having to search outside of that proverbial box and try to find a lot of the information yourself as well. So, past essays, that can be another approach. You've written for past classes and other coursework you have taken, or academic lectures and programs you've attended. I've had some students who attended some of my previous courses, or some of them have attended some of my workshops. And when I do a lot of my workshops, I look at different areas. I look at trauma, I look at psychoeducation, I look at applying it to working with inmates, working with victims, working with perpetrators, working with schools, and just working with community organizations as well. And so when I do a lot of these workshops, some of the students have kind of attended, and when they attend, they kind of get a better understanding of where they can maybe apply that knowledge and where they can utilize some of that knowledge when they're writing. So again, that's one of the things I kind of urge you each to do. Number five, online portals. Search online media sources to see if your idea has been covered in the news. Again, what I'm saying is look in the news. If you find something, great, but do not use newspapers for your support. You may use it as a way of guiding you, but I don't want to see newspapers implemented into your initial research. Again, you're using this coverage to refine your idea. Again, that's one of the things I have had students kind of do where they've backed up their research paper with newspaper articles, and when that happens, they lost a ton of points because newspaper articles are not scholarly articles, because again, newspaper articles a lot of times either sensationalize the news, or a lot of times it can be biased. And so when you look at peer-reviewed articles, a lot of times they're being reviewed by different members all together who kind of agree, like, you know, they agree on the outlook of being as unbiased as humanly possible. And so that's really where a lot of times that's where initially those are the issues that kind of arise when you use newspaper articles, even online newspaper articles. An assignment. Think of an idea and write it down as a topic. That's one of the biggest things. Is I've had students kind of just mull over it and spend numerous hours just trying to figure out what their topic will be. Initially, just get a journal and kind of just write out some ideas. Kind of just do that brainstorming. Initially, that's what I have to do. Like I said, I'm working on my dissertation right now, and I'm also working on various projects within that college. And some of it I just have to write down some ideas. One of them I'm working on right now is the Missing and Murdered Relatives Initiative. So a lot of times you're kind of having to look at, the topic of missing persons and stuff like that. And a lot of times you're kind of having to just write down a broad topic, and then as time progresses, you're kind of narrowing in on a given direction. So choosing your topic. The breadth. You may need to start broad and let your research take you narrower. Originality. Choose a topic that will allow you to stay focused within your search rather than just regurgitating facts. And sources. Choose a topic that has scholarly grounding. Again, that's where I really try to emphasize the fact that I need to make sure that you're using scholarly sources. And narrowing your topic. Particular place or region. Time period, 2012 to 2019. Focus on a certain aspect. Again, that's going to be psychological, so you have to use psychology as the main emphasis. Again, you're looking at population. Focus on a relationship with two or more topics. Combine different kinds of focus. And research background to the study and problem statement. So example. So here's an example. So imagine a friend runs to you with a very long story that you find difficult to understand why she, he, or they are telling you that, and what she, he, or they intend to do. At the end of the story, you are likely to surprisingly going to ask him and ask what, and so what. So initially, that's what you're primarily trying to do. The answer given to your question, and so what, is referred to as the problem statement. So initially, that's what you're doing. So the and so what is that initial problem statement. You're asking that. You're asking that initial outlook of, okay, why are you telling me this? Why is there a reason why you want me to know this? So the long talk is the background. So the background is kind of just that build-up, the build-up of the key facts. And one of the biggest things is when I counsel individuals, a lot of times, a lot of people always look at it from the angle of, as a counselor or even as a psychologist, a lot of times you're always looking at the outlook of, we're able to kind of key in on key information. But the reality is you're actually trying to hear what the background is. You're trying to hear what the background leading up to a given issue is. And once they get to that issue, then you're able to break that down based upon what had been shared with you prior. So the background to the study. Before a problem statement is stated, a brief background is usually given. So again, the background gives the reader, one, the general definition of the topic or problem, historical basis for the existence of the problem, in other words, how did it come about, and what issues have arisen from the initial issue, and also the efforts made towards addressing similar challenges. A lot of times when we face an issue, it's based upon our prior knowledge of dealing with a similar issue. And number 4, how the efforts fail to be realized, hence the need for your study. So that's really what you're looking at. You're saying, okay, prior knowledge has been applied to this. I see it. I notice it. Now how am I going to address it? And that's a lot of where your study kind of comes in. That's where your library research paper kind of shares that newfound insight. And that's where I always say, one, for a lot of students, you have those fresh eyes. For a lot of researchers, they've been doing this research for so long that sometimes their judgment and their ability to be discernful is kind of skewed. But for the younger generation, a lot of times you're able to see it from that fresh perspective. And so from that fresh perspective, you're able to say, hey, yeah, I see something. I know it's applicable to today's culture, to today's society. Therefore, I'm going to try to address it from this perspective versus how it's always been done before. And then the problem statement. Your library research problem statement is the foundation and focus of your library research report. It is a clear standalone statement that makes explicit what it is you are aiming to discover or establish or research into. So again, if your research problem statement is poorly worded, unfocused, or ambiguous, the rest of your research is likely to go off track. Again, one of the biggest things is just making sure that you keep it simple. You want to make sure that you're able to say, this is what I'm going to focus in on. And simplicity is key. I've had students try to get very elaborate. And when you get very elaborate, what happens is the message gets lost. Bear in mind, you're trying to make sure that you're bridging your insight to just the general audience. And the best way I always kind of look at it is, and again, that's where I always come from that angle of, as an educator in the field, I usually work with a lot of communities. And when I work with communities, a lot of times you're just having to break it down. You're having to break down everything to where the general layman is able to say, oh, okay, I get that. I understand that. I see where you're coming from. And a lot of times when you're using all this high knowledge, and if you're not able to break it down for them, they're going to look at you and say, well, how is that useful for me? Again, the same thing applies when you're writing. You want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to share this knowledge, but I also want to break it down. I want to make sure that it's better worded. I want to make sure that it's focused, and I want to make sure that it's clear. So good outcome-based verbs. Identify, define, describe, review, indicate, formulate, explain, compare, contrast, suggest, interpret, analyze, assess, design, construct, apply, demonstrate, illustrate, categorize, deduce, and create. So again, these are good action verbs. You want to make sure that you're able to say, I'm going to identify, or I'm going to define, or the research that I'm conducting will define such and such, or will describe, or will review, or will indicate, or will formulate, or the constructed outlook will proffer new insights in such and such. So again, here's some others. Differentiate, derive, conceptualize, suggest, consolidate, clarify, appraise, calculate, and recommend. But make sure that you're using this correctly. I've had students try to use higher end verbs, but it doesn't apply to the given outlook. And then it just becomes confusing for the reader, which would be me. And one of the biggest things I always tell students is, I'm not an English major, but if I can't even make sense of it, then there's an issue. So that's one of the biggest things they kind of clarify with a lot of students. So forbidden verbs: understand, know, explore, investigate, examine, and discuss. Are poor verbs as they describe processes, not outcomes. They can be used as aims, but not objectives. One of the biggest things you're looking at is they describe a process, not the outcome. You want to make sure that you're describing the initial outcome, what initially you're going to be looking at, versus saying, I'm going to understand this, or I'm going to know this, or I'm going to explore this, which then leaves everything kind of up to chance. One of the biggest things is you're trying to make sure that you already have a given outlook that you can kind of clarify. So again, you can discuss something endlessly without ever having to make recommendations, draw conclusions, or offer a result. Again, you might be exploring, examining, or investigating as part of your process, but they cannot be the end result of your research. Again, it should be more tangible. Tangibility meaning that you should have initial facts to back up the initial statements. So how will the topic of choice blend into your library research paper? So again, you'll look at it. Again, this is only a page and a half. As a foundational building block of your library research paper. So again, this page and a half, a lot of students have kind of looked at it and said, okay, I did my title page and then I wrote 2 or 3 sentences. That's roughly about 2 pages. Sadly, no, that's only 3 sentences. Bear in mind that your title page is not counted with the initial page and a half. So the page and a half has to be actual written work. So what is expected in the topic of choice paper? So again, here it is, the format. It has to be double spaced, 1-inch margins all the way around, 12-point font, Times New Roman. Number of the pages in the margin, upper right hand corner. Page and a half maximum of written work. So this is not a work in fantasy or wonderment, but rather a focus on what you can write and offer. So if you look to the left, that's a whole page, all the way to the bottom, all the way to the top. And then you look over to the right, that's half a page. I've had students only try to submit about a page and then 2 sentences into the next page, and they're like, that's a page and a half. No, that's not. That's only a page and 2 sentences. Make sure that it actually is a page and a half of written work. Very simple, but sometimes I lose people here. Combine both. It will come to a page and a half of written work. May seem non-trivial, but there are those who have submitted only a sentence or 2. I've had students do that. They've only submitted a sentence or 2. Bear in mind when you do that, you will lose major points. I've had students try to plead saying, well, can I have a do-over? Can I have this and that? The answer is no. You have ample time to complete a lot of these assignments. I would kind of focus in on completing them, making sure that you do the best work possible. So page 1, how should it look? So here's your page 1. Title of the page up right there. My awesome paper about psychology. That is your title. Make sure you have a title. Don't just put psychology paper or a research paper. Make it original. This is where your imagination comes in. Make sure it keys into what you're actually writing about. Again, title goes there, and then you have a little space, then you have your name, whatever it is. I don't know what your name is, so again, that's where you're going to put your name. Then you're going to put your institution name. So the institution name is the Net College. Below that, you're going to have the course name. So it's going to be PSY 111, I believe it's Introduction to Psychology -PSY 111. And then you're going to have your instructor name. Make sure you get your instructor's name right. I've had students call me Babar, Barbar, all these different things. Bear in mind, I'm pretty lenient with it, but if you come across other instructors here and there, one, you can lose points for that. So don't do that. Make sure you get their names right. That's why they have the syllabus. Again, make sure you have, make sure you get it right. So again, you also have the date assignment that it's due. Again, you start the title page. Again, upper right-hand corner, what do you have there? Page number. Make sure you have the page numbers. Learn to put page numbers in there. Don't try to get fancy with it. Don't try to put your last name up there with the page number. Just put your page number up there. Very simple. In addition to that, make sure it's Times New Roman. I've had students try to get fancy with it. I've had students try to do this, that, and the other. Don't just stick with 12 font. You're really keeping it very simple. Like I said, this is not a creative writing course. You're keeping it very simple. So page 1 and the half should begin to take shape. So this is the next page. So this is going to be page 2. So this is where you're writing a lot of this. You're sharing a lot of it. So in page 2, again, this is the topic of choice paper. So you haven't added a whole lot to it. So you're kind of just identifying the topic. You're being specific, explaining why this topic is important, provide an overview of the topic. In other words, the purpose of what you're writing, the scope of what you're writing, the assumptions and the limitations. And then you're going to go into the little half page. So now, but I want to submit my whole library research paper. I've had students try to do this. They tried to submit their whole paper right then and there, and it becomes a headache because I have to tell them that they did not apply proper research, or they did not apply scholarly research, or they did not apply the necessary scholarly articles. So don't try to jump the gun. Make sure you kind of hold off. This is only the page and a half that you're submitting. Again, altogether, it should come out to maybe 2.5 pages with your title page. And the second page is where you have written work, and then you have that little half page. So altogether, it should come out to about 2.5 pages total. Again, the topic of choice is similar to your introduction. As you continue adding more to the paper, it then becomes a library research paper. Again, I cannot stress that enough. Do not submit the full paper assignment. Like I said, I've had students try to submit the whole 3 to 4 pages, and they had major points deducted because they kind of didn't pay attention to the directions. And I've had students try to say, well, I think I can do it my own way. I said, that's great, that's awesome. Just wait. So now, writing a research paper. Why do you need to look within or without? Whichever works. So again, writing a research paper. Again, you're choosing your topic, narrowing your topic, which should have been completed prior. Now writing a thesis statement, as well as creating an outline. So topic has been chosen. Now where do I go? So here's your thesis statement. Again, it's an outline, and it is a roadmap for the rest of the paper. In other words, a typical thesis statement gives brief mention to each of the paper's main points, and it also states the overall argument the writer wishes to make. It directly answers the question asked of you. It makes a claim that others might dispute. It is usually a single sentence near the end of the first paragraph that presents your argument to the reader. So, identifying a strong thesis statement. Do I answer the question? Have I taken a position that others might challenge or oppose? And does my thesis possess, or does my thesis pass the so what test? In other words, if you were to tell me something and I look at you and I say, so what? Why do I need to know about it? And you tell me, well, you need to know about it because of this, and the other. Okay, then state that. Does my essay support my thesis specifically and without wandering? You want to make sure it's focused. You don't kind of want to just be chasing rabbits. And does my thesis pass the how and why tests? How's it going to take place? And why is it taking place? Why is this happening? How is it happening? Explain that. So here's an initial statement example. Compare and contrast the reason why the North and South fought the Civil War. So this is the essay topic. For example, the North and South fought the Civil War for many reasons, some of which were the same and some different. If you note the example, it's poor because one, it's not giving me really any reasons. What were the reasons? Why were the reasons? Why were there many reasons? Some of which were the same and some different. Okay. What was the same and what was different? Why is this, why do I need to know this? Seems like you're kind of wandering all over the place. I don't really know what you're trying to state. Better example. While both sides fought the Civil War over the issue of slavery, the North fought for moral reasons, while the South fought to preserve its own institutions. It's a little better. Best example. While both Northerners and Southerners believe they fought against tyranny and oppression, Northerners focused on the oppression of slaves, while Southerners defended their own right to self-government. Now you're kind of breaking it down. You're sharing to the reader, this is what I want to focus in on. This is what you're going to learn more about. So, write an analysis of some aspects of Mark Twain's novel Huckleberry Finn. For example, Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn is a great American novel. Why is it great? How do we know it's great? Is it just based on your outlook? In Huckleberry Finn, Mark Twain develops a contrast between life on the river and life on the shore. It's more insightful. It's more of a when you look at this, you're kind of saying, okay, this is more of a spiritual journey. What is happening to Huckleberry Finn? And how am I able to learn more about the intrinsic elements of life and living? And the best example, through its contrasting river and shore scenes, Twain's Huckleberry Finn suggests that to find the true expression of American democratic ideals, one must leave civilized society and go back to nature. Now you're kind of looking at all the elements of, okay, wow, I'm learning more about the how, I'm learning more about the why, and now I'm more involved. I'm more involved in what is being expressed. Therefore, I'm committed to wanting to read more. And that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to create that hook for your reader. When you're creating your thesis statement, you want to be able to say, okay, this is what I'm looking at. This is why I want to share it. So the writing process. So you have an outline, draft, revise, and edit. Benefits of an outline. It aids in the process of writing. It helps you organize your ideas. It presents your material in a logical form. Shows the relationship among readers or among ideas in your writing. Constructs an ordered overview of your writing. Defines boundaries and groups. And it prevents you from straying from the topic. So creating an outline. Research. Perform initial research to learn about your chosen topic. Brainstorm. In other words, list all the ideas that you want to include in your paper. Organize. In other words, group related ideas together. Order it and arrange materials in subsections from general to specific. And then label. Create main and subheadings. Outline tips. I cannot stress this enough. Begin early. Number 2, refer to your outline often. Number 3, be as specific as possible. Avoid having too many outlines, or not too many outlines, but too many subheadings. Again, this can become overwhelming. Don't be afraid to change your outline. Allow yourself enough time to make changes. Again, like I said, some students have waited until the very, very last end, and suddenly they're scrambling, and suddenly they're panicking, and suddenly they're being stressed and everything else, and then they're freaking out saying, the professor is stressing me out because he wants it on this due date. And all I can say is you're given ample time. So again, hopefully this brief outline helps with your topic of choice paper. Again, the next PowerPoint that will be provided will begin to look at the article summary worksheets. So hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. I cannot stress that enough. All right, so have a good night. Well, for me, it's night. But for you, have a good day. Be amazing. Be awesome. Until we meet again.